Truma is Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph. The previous parak we discussed the halacha of what happens if somebody eats, a non-kohen eats Truma b'shegeg. This parak is going to discuss what happens if somebody, a non-kohen, eats Truma b'mezid. Ha'oichel Truma b'mezid mishalem es hakaron ve'einu mishalem es hachaymash. We learned in the previous parak that somebody who eats Truma b'shegeg must pay a karen and a chaymash. He has to make the payment with something which was Truma, which ma'isa can be taken off, which then becomes Truma. No kohen can release him from having to pay. The halachas apply only to one who committed this by mistake. The following Mishnayos are going to teach us about one who did it b'mezid. He knew that the food was Truma and he knew the chomer ha'isr. If a non-kohen deliberately commits a sin of eating Truma, he's mechuyev to misa b'dei shamayim. If Adam saw him eat Truma immediately, or after they or someone else warned him of the severity of the isr, he gets malchus. In the case where he was warned and is mechuyev malchus, he would not be mechuyev to pay the kohen anything because the general rule that someone who commits a sin that makes him liable to both malchus and a monetary payment receives malchus but doesn't have to pay. Our Mishnah, therefore, which speaks of the payment he has to make, must be referring to someone who was not warned, and thus didn't become mechuyev and malchus. It's true that he's still mechuyev and misa b'dei shabayim, because that punishment does not exempt the person who did this from payment. Ha'oichel truma mezid, if someone ate truma knowingly, mishalem es hakaron ve'einu mishalem es hachaymash, he pays the principal because he must compensate the owner for the theft of the truma, but he doesn't pay the chaymesh. This is the extra payment which is imposed only on one who ate truma by mistake. Hatashlumen chulin, if he pays with produce, the payment remains regular produce and does not become truma. If a kohen wants to forgive the payment, he can. Since the purpose of paying is only to compensate the kohen for his loss, there's no chiyuv over here to pay the shevet hakahuna. If he eats a b'shegeg, then there is a part that he has to give back to the shevet hakahuna. Okay. Mishnah base. Bas kohen shenisas liYisrael. If a daughter of a kohen marries a non-kohen, she is no longer allowed to eat truma. However, if her husband dies or divorces her, and she has no children from him, she returns to her father's household and may eat truma as before. But if her husband was a disqualified person, she permanently loses her rights from the kahuna and may never eat truma again. A disqualified person includes any man she's forbidden to marry, such as a mamzer, a chalal, which is a child of a union between a kohen and a woman who kahanim are forbidden to marry, such as a divorcee. Although the daughter of a kohen is allowed to marry a chalal, she may no longer eat truma once she does, which is a chiddush in a sense because it doesn't really stop her, but she's allowed to, but it's being ma'akev from eating truma. So mishalem es hakaron ve'einu mishalem es hachaymash. She pays. So bas kohen shenisas liYisrael v'achach achal truma. If the daughter of a kohen married Yisrael and then ate truma by mistake, which she is not allowed to do, mishalem es hakaron ve'einu mishalem es hachaymash, she pays the principal because she must compensate the owner for his loss. She doesn't pay the chaymash because she's still a kohenes in this respect. Misasa b'sreifa. If she was mezana, her chi of misa is sreifa, a special punishment imposed upon a kohenes who commits adultery. When the Torah says a kohen's daughter commits adultery should be punished with sreifa, it includes both one married to a kohen and one married to a Yisrael. This is la'echem mikol ha'psulun. However, if she's married to any one that's possible kahuna, she's no longer treated as a kohenes. Mishalem es karen v'chaymesh. If she eats truma by mistake, she pays a karen v'chaymesh and misasa b'chenek. If she's mezana, the Mises Bezdin is chenek. The Torah says that the einish of Sreifa applies dafka to a daughter of a kohen. According to Rameir, this woman lost her status as a daughter of a kohen when she married this disqualified person because she can never return to her father's house to eat truma. Okay. Chachamim say that this one, meaning a kohen's daughter who married a regular zar, and a kohen's daughter who married a apostle, are still mechuyev in the same halachas of a kohenes. That if they eat truma by mistake, they must pay the karen and not the chaymesh. Misasam b'sreifa, and if they're mezana, they are put to death by sreifa. According to the Chacham, the daughter of a kohen retains that status even if she married an apostle. So when the Torah states that the bas kohen is mechuyev misa, it's referring to this one who married a apostle. Mishnah Gimel. Hamachel is bon of ketanim. If someone feeds truma to his minor children, boys younger than 13 or girls younger than 12, ves avodav ben gedolim ben ketanim, or his avodim knanim, whether they're adults or children. Oichel truma schutz laaretz, or someone eats truma that was separated from produce grown outside Eretz Yisrael, v'oichel pachas mikazayis truma, or if someone eats less than an olive's volume of truma, mishalem es hakaren ve'inu mishalem es hachomesh. In all these cases, he pays the karen to compensate the kohen for his loss, but he doesn't pay the chomesh. And if he pays with produce, the payment remains ordinary. It doesn't become truma. If the kohen wants to forgo his payment, he can do so. Since he's paying only to compensate the kohen for his loss, the kohen can release him from that. He doesn't have to pay. If he's mechuyev to the shevet hakahuna, that means that really every kohen has a right to to be tayin against him, to pay him. Right, and it gets into the sugi of makiri kahuna and all that kind of shmuzim. Okay. Mishnah Dalet Zeh HaKlal, this is the rule. Kol HaMashal L'Karen V'Chomesh, anyone who must pay a Karen V'Chomesh for eating Truma, HaTashlumin Truma, the produce that he gives as payment becomes Truma. Im Ratza Kohen L'Mchol Eine Meichel, if the Kohen wants to forgo the payment, he cannot forgo it. Kol HaMashal L'Karen V'Eine Mashal L'Chomesh HaTashlumin Chulin. Anyone who must pay only the principal and not the fifth, like if he eats a b'mezid, he must pay with produce. If he pays with produce, the payment remains regular produce and does not become Truma. Im Ratza Kohen L'Mchol Meichel, and if the Kohen wants to forgo the payment, he can be meichel. Whenever someone is obligated to pay on account of the isser of eating truma by mistake, b'shaygig, he must add a chaymesh. Therefore, if a person is parted from a chaymesh, it's clear that his chiyuv is not based on that specific isser, but rather on the general requirement to compensate the owner of something that he stole or he was mazik. It's like being mazik truma. If someone's mazik somebody, he doesn't have to pay. If someone broke someone's window, he's got to pay him for the window. He doesn't got to pay a chaymesh on top of that, unless we're dealing with some kind of knas or something else. But the ikr, that's the regular halacha. As such, the special halacha regarding the payment for the isser of eating truma b'shoigeg does not apply. Okay, back to Mishnah Hay, back to the sugi of taruvas for a little bit. The Mishnah now turns to a different topic. In Perek Daled Mishnah Zayin through Perek Hay Mishnah Tes, the Mishnah discussed halachas of truma that became nisarev, that got mixed with chulin. If there are less than 100 parts of chulin for each part of truma, such a mixture, which is known as meduma, may not be eaten by a non-kayin. Here, the Mishnah discusses halacha in a situation where we don't know if truma became mixed into the chulin. In the Mishnah's first case, truma fell into one of two boxes, one containing truma, the other containing chulin, but we don't know which box it fell into. If it fell into the box containing truma, the status of the boxes remains the same. However, if it fell into the box of chulin and the box doesn't contain a total of 101 times the truma, the contents of that box will be usher to a non-kayin. So here we go. Back into the world of taruvas of truma. If there are two boxes, one containing truma, one containing chulin, and the side of truma fell into one of them and became mixed with the produce in that box, and he doesn't know into which of the boxes it fell. I can say that the truma fell into the box of truma. That is, we're allowed to assume that the truma fell into the box of truma, and the box of chulin remains mutter even if it contains less than 101 sa. The Mishnah is discussing a case where any possible truma obligation is only midrabbanon. For example, truma bisman azeh, which is only chiv midrabbanon. So the rabbanon treated such a case lekula. It's midrabbanon lekula, because allowing us to assume that the truma fell into the box of truma, thus both boxes stay the same. The box of chulin remains mutter to anyone, and the box of truma remains mutter only to kohanim. Now, what about the next case? Instead of there being a suffix regarding the truma that fell into one of the boxes, the suffix is which box contains truma, which box is chulin. So, if it's not known which box contains truma, which box contains chulin, if a non-kohen ate the content of one of the boxes, potter, he's potter from paying a kohen for the produce he ate, since it's not known whether he ate truma or chulin. The second box of produce that remains must be treated as truma because of the possibility that it may be truma. But at the same time, since it may be chulin, it's mechuyev and challah if it was made into dough. Although truma is not mechuyev in dough, right? So it's nayag bucket truma, but it's still mechuyev and challah. So it's very funny. It's in between. Divrei Reb Meir, that's what Reb Meir holds. Reb Yesi says that the second box of produce is pater from challah, since we're not sure if it's truma or chulin. It has the same halach as meduma, which just as meduma is not mechuyev and challah, this box of produce is also not mechuyev and challah. The Gemara Nida explains that the kula of meduma regarding the chiv challah is based on the fact challah is only midrabanan also. So you can't be mechayev the rabbanon by we're not going to be machmer in a din rabbanon for a din rabbanon over here. Ochal acheres hashniya pater. But if someone else came along and ate what was in the second box, he too is pater from paying a kohen because the box may have actually been one that was chulin. Achal echad ashtayan, mishalim kektana shebashtem. But if someone ate both of them, then he's zicher eating chulin and he's zicher eating truma. So one of the boxes, so then he must pay the value of one of the boxes. Nevertheless, if the boxes are not the same size, we can't be mechayiv him to pay more than the value of the smaller box, since the larger box may have been the one containing the chulin. Mishnah Vav. If it's not known which box is truma, which one is chulin, and the contents of one of the boxes fell into chulin, and the final taruvis contained less than 101 times the amount that fell in, the halacha is as follows: it does not make the chulin meduma. Similar to the previous Mishnah, it doesn't become a duma, and the produce in the second box that it did not fall in must be treated as truma, and it's obligated in chala. And that's what Rameir holds. Rav Yesi Paiter, Rav Yesi says is Pater, since we're not sure if it's truma or chulin, we treat it as if it was a mixture of truma and chulin, which is not mechuyev and chala. If the contents of the second box fell into another place and became mixed into chulin, and the final mixture contains less than 101 times the amount that it fell in, it too does not make it meduma, which is also to a non-kohen, because the second box may have been the one containing the chulin. If the contents of both boxes fell into the same place, they both together became mixed with chulin. Now we know that there's zichar, we're vadai that there's truma in here. However, if the boxes that fell in were not the same size, we don't know how much truma is in the mixture, because we don't know which box contains the truma. Therefore, they caused it to be meduma only as much as the smaller of the two boxes. Thus, if there's 100 times as much chulin as the contents of the smaller box, the amount of produce that's equal to the amount of produce that was in the smaller box is removed, and the truma becomes a bottle. Okay, the Mishnah Zayin. Perek Vav had 6 Mishnayos, and Perek Zayin has 7 Mishnayos. We're going to learn in Perek Tes, the halacha, if someone plants zera of truma by mistake, he must plow up the soil so that the seeds will not grow. If he didn't plow it, and a new plant grows, the new produce is considered truma. This Mishnah addresses whether these halachas would apply in the case discussed in the previous Mishnayos, where there were 2 boxes, one of truma, one of chulin, and we don't know which box was what. So zaras achas man potter. If one planted the produce of one of the boxes, he's potter from plowing it up, since we're not sure that it's truma, and the chacham were not mechuyev to plow it up. And when the new produce grows, we don't treat it as truma. As in the previous Mishnayos, the Mishnah is speaking of which any possible truma chiyuv over here is only midrabona. It's talking about bismar azeh, so we're not going to be machmir over here. The second remaining box of produce that he did not plant must be treated as truma, because we can't assume that the second box contains chulin and the first box was planted contained the truma. At the same time, since the second box may be chulin, it's mechuyev in chala if it was made into dough. Rav Yesi Paiter, Rav Yesi says the second box is exempt from the chala obligation, since we're not sure if it's truma or chulin. We treat it as if it was meduma, which is not mechuyev in chala. Zora acher sashniya potter. If someone else came along and took the second box and planted, those seeds were not mechuyev to plow that up either. As with the first box, since we're not sure that it's truma, it's rechacham, we're not mechuyev that we should be oikerit, or we should plow it up. Zara echad shteyan. However, if one person planted the produce of both boxes, that means he's zicher bevadai planted truma. So the halacha is the new produce depends on what type of seeds that he planted. But davar shazare kola mutter. Something whose seed decomposes when it's planted, such as wheat or barley, is permitted to be eaten by a non-kohen. Also, but something whose seed does not decompose, such as garlic or onions, it's also to be eaten by a non-kohen. Here too, the halacha is the same as when someone plants seeds that are meduma. The produce of the seeds that will not decompose is prohibited to a non-kohen. Ad kan.